Do your hips feel stiff and achy after sitting too long? What if you could ease that discomfort with the right movements? In this video, I'll run through 3 effective exercises designed to loosen up your hips and improve your overall hip mobility. When it comes to managing hip stiffness, especially osteoarthritis, movement isn't just helpful, it's essential. But not all exercises are created equal. Some can bring relief, while others might worsen the pain if you're not careful. Perfect for beginners and anyone looking to enhance their flexibility, these exercises can easily be incorporated into your routine. As an osteopathic practitioner and athletic therapist, I regularly give these 3 movements to my clients to integrate after their treatments. This way they can continue to progress at home. Hip stiffness is a common issue, especially for those who spend long hours sitting, whether at a desk job or any static position. When you're seated for extended periods, the muscles in the hip, particularly the hip flexors, tend to shorten and tighten. At the same time, the glute muscles, which help stabilize and move the hips, can become underactive or turned off. This combination of tight hip flexors and inactive glutes contributes to the feeling of stiffness and can limit your mobility over time. Regular movement and targeted exercises are key to maintaining flexibility and preventing hip stiffness. So let's jump into the rehab exercises. So the first exercise we're going to do today is called a gossip test or Samba test. It's actually an osteopathic test that I use in the clinic on a daily basis, and it's to test hip mobility if there's any restriction or stiffness. And so I actually give this as an exercise to improve hip mobility after I've treated my clients. And it is just a great exercise to incorporate on a regular basis. I also love this exercise because you do not need any equipment for it, and it's easy to do anywhere. So let's start with you standing shoulder width apart. I want you to think of your feet as a tripod. So think of your big toe, little toe, and your heel. And I want you to keep that nice and grounded the whole time. When you're doing this exercise, be mindful of how your hips feel specifically in this area, okay? So the first thing we're gonna do is you're gonna bend your right knee, dropping the right hip down and translating into the left hip. See how this feels on the left side, okay? Then come back up, bend the left knee, drop the left hip, and then translate into your right hip. The weight should be fully on the extended leg. So right now, majority of my weight is on my right leg. And see how this right side feels. We'll repeat and go back to the other side. Your hands can be on your hip and then translating to the left. See how that feels? And then coming back up and then translating to the right. Now, do you feel like one hip is a little bit stiffer than the other? When we're translating across, I'm looking to see, can you translate your body weight to the leg that's fully extended? And are you able to, is your hip able to extend on that side? If I feel like it's restricted, maybe there, you can only get down a little bit and this hip can't fully drop, then there's probably a restriction here on this side. Now I'm gonna just turn to the side here so you can see my hips. It's important to make sure that you're looking straight ahead and that when you bend your knee, you are not twisting your pelvis. You're keeping your pelvis in neutral and alignment and square. So as you bend the right knee, it should stay straight forward. Come back up, switch and go to the other side. This is the exercise. So you're just going to slowly translate from one side to the next. You're doing this 20 times. And you can do this a few times per day. There's really no limit for this movement. It just feels nice and easy on the hip joints. You shouldn't have any pain with this movement. If you do, then stop. But it's just a fantastic exercise for overall mobility. So the second exercise that we're gonna do is a half kneeling hip flexor and hamstring stretch. It's a dynamic hip mobility exercise using flexion and extension of the hip. And we are targeting the hip flexors and the hamstring muscles. You don't need any equipment for this exercise, but if you have a pillow or a yoga block to protect your knee, it might be helpful. You're gonna start in a half kneeling position with both legs and knees at 90-degree angle. You're gonna start first by stretching out the front of the hip flexor. So what I want you to think of is tucking the hip underneath the pelvis, and you're just gonna gently rock forward, feeling a stretch through here. And then as you rock back, you're gonna extend the leg up, and you should keep your back in a nice neutral alignment, and you should feel a stretch through the right leg, okay? So rocking forward, opening up the front of the hip, and then extending back. You might need to play with the position of your feet. Maybe a wider stance will be a little bit more helpful if you're a little bit more flexible, or if you feel like it's a bit too tight, then you can bring your feet and knees closer together. Using a wall next to you is also very helpful for stability. So as I extend back into that hamstring position, I can assist my balance here with the right side of the wall, and then rocking forward, tucking the front of the hip. Okay, so extending back, getting a stretch through the hamstring on the right side, toe up towards my nose, and then rocking forward, keeping the pelvis tucked underneath. I'm not trying to arch from my back and get more lumbar lordosis, keeping my core engaged to help that support. And then extending back, and then toe up towards my nose. Same thing, keeping my pelvis nice and square so I'm not rotating during this exercise. You can perform 10 to 20 repetitions on one side, then you're gonna wanna switch, and then do the same thing on the other side. So hips should be stacked, have your foot nice and planted in front, 90-degree angle with your knees. You're going to lean forward slightly, tucking the pelvis underneath, lengthening the front of the hip flexor on the right. And then as you come back, extending back, still keeping your spine in neutral, toe up towards your nose, and then rocking back and forth. Repeat 10 to 20 times. And you can do this one a couple times a day, and I suggest integrating it a few times per week. Okay, the third and final exercise is called 90-90 hip mobility. This is one of my favorite exercises to improve internal and external rotation mobility of the hip joint. It's pretty advanced exercise. There's ways to make it easier and harder. I will show you some of those modifications today. You don't need any equipment, but if you do need to make this exercise easier, it'd be good to have a pillow or a yoga block to assist. Okay, so let's get into it. You're gonna start having a seat on the mat. Your feet should be in a 90-90 position here with your knees and hips, and then I want your body to be nice and stacked over top of your pelvis. Keeping the feet where they are within this 90-90 position, you're going to lift your left knee up, trying to bring it across while keeping the right leg down as long as you can until you start to feel a pull, and then rotating across to the opposite side. And as you can see, now I have the 90-90 still on this side because I didn't lift my feet or modify the position. I'm staying nice and tall. I can have my hands behind me for support if needed. And then I'm gonna come back across, slowly bringing the knee out to the side and rotating the other leg across. So the right hip is an external rotation, the left hip is an internal rotation. If I wanna get a little bit more of a stretch through the front of the hip here, I can drive the hip forward, and then coming back, rotate the left leg out, and then bringing the right hip into internal rotation. And same thing here, can drive the hip forward too to assist that internal rotation. Now, if you want to modify this one, as I mentioned, you can use a pillow, or if you have a block at home, you can use that. You'll have a seat on the block. You're in the same position, hands behind you for support. And then you can just see here how it eases the tension in my hips. Lift the knee up. Your same principles apply. Keep the legs apart as long as you can. Rotate through, and then allow the hips to drop down, and then repeat the other side. Okay, so that's one way to make this one easier. So to increase or make this one a little bit more challenging, I'm just gonna show you some modifications we can do. So when we're in that 90-90 position here, one thing that I love to do is to stretch the external rotators on the right side. So my right leg that's in external rotation is I will actually lean my body over the front leg, and I'll right away start to feel that stretch. I can come down, hold this position here, Breathe into this stretch, just trying to allow the muscles to relax. I can hold this position for up to 30 seconds or just even a few seconds. Come out of this one and rotate across and do the same thing on this side. Come all the way down, hold that stretch for a few seconds, and then come back up. That's one way to add to the mobility exercise. Then the next thing we can do is we can advance it by doing a little bit more stability exercises where we work on lifting the front leg, getting more of that external rotation in the right hip, coming back down, holding that for 5 seconds. And then same thing here, doing internal rotation of the left leg, holding that for 5 seconds, slowly coming back down. Now, when you're doing this exercise, it's pretty common that people, when they're trying to do the internal rotation exercise, will get a spasm or kind of cramping in the hips. So I suggest you gradually start with that one, maybe only hold it for a second or two and try to integrate that into 10 repetitions. This one you can start 2 to 3 sets. It's a really fun one, give it a go. I just thought of another one actually to make it a little bit easier, is that windshield wipers or lying on your back, you can do internal external rotation, but you can also just gently do it from sitting here. So if 90-90 is still too much of an advanced exercise, you can just gently rock back and forth. That's another great progression. So those are the 3 hip mobility exercises to try to incorporate into your routine a few times a week. When you're performing strength exercises during injury rehabilitation, it's important to follow pain guidelines to ensure safe and effective progressions. Pain should generally stay within a range of 0 to 3 out of 10, where discomfort is acceptable, but sharp or increased pain is a red flag. If pain reaches about a 4 or a 5, modifications should be made, such as reducing the weight, adjusting form, or shortening the range of motion. Pain should not worsen during the activity or linger for more than 24 hours post-exercise. Any severe pain above a 6 means that you should stop immediately and reassess. Gradual progression in load with a focus on form and pain-free movement is essential. Ensure that exercise rebuilds strength without exacerbating the injury. So to improve hip mobility, it's essential to minimize static positions, whether sitting or standing for prolonged periods. One simple yet effective strategy is to take frequent breaks from your chair. Set an alarm to remind yourself to stand up and move around for at least 1 minute on every hour. Additionally, focusing on engaging your glute muscles, especially when transitioning from sitting to standing, as this helps to reactivate muscles that may have become underutilized. Lastly, stretching and opening up the front of your hip can help alleviate the shortened state caused by long periods of sitting, promoting better flexibility and movement. I hope you now have a clear understanding of how to improve your hip mobility and manage pain effectively. If you found this video helpful and want to dive deeper, stay tuned. Just a reminder, there's always a way to stay functional and continue progressing even when you're dealing with an injury, pain, or setback. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more tips on injury prevention and recovery solutions. Thank you for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.